Welcome to Rauta's Non-Metal Sunday. This time we have a vinyl release that's very far from being a metal release. Now there's a background story which I kind of want to explain in a very short version, which I'm not really known for. And that is that in not so near future, not so distant future, either is this war where these leftover veterans of Second Cold War after World War V. These numbers make me crazy. There's this war still going on, and they partake in this story, of which this one, an album called 195, is the soundtrack to by an British artist, Ogre, and that is something kind of a fictional version of future, which is like the future we were already imagining back in the 1980s that future would be. Actually, Ubisoft made a great game about it with Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. That was how the future would be, that is 2000 something, if it was happening in the ways that we imagined that back in the 1980s. And that's where this leads to this album as well. Now, if you have played Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, you know that it's the kind of a Power Glove style of soundtrack, winning synthwaves with neon colors and all. And that future is also very neon colored, neon lights with weird mutated dragons and all. And this could be a brother to that kind of a soundtrack. Comes with a poster, by the way. So this vinyl features more than 20 tracks of music. Comes in a nice looking vinyl. This is, I think, from 2018 or so. Originally this one was released in 2014. So this is a reissue version of this album. And like I said, this is a kind of a synthwave music in a fictional soundtrack ways. Now, as you can imagine, it's classic vinyl. I think this is 180 grams or so, pretty goddamn thick. Looks nice, feels nice, more importantly, sounds nice. Now, those of you who have spent their childhood in 1980s, much like me, you're very much at home with this kind of a music and, well, soundtrack feeling, because this is very much like going back to the era when things were indeed kind of a neon colors and all, but we didn't get to see that future. We had a bunch of horrible and some good one movies as well around that era. And the music was very much, you know, the kind of rise of synthesizer music. I mean, we call it outrun nowadays, or cyberpunk, synthwave, crime wave, cyberwave, who knows what kind of waves. But what is essential here is that this is the kind of a retro thing happening. So very much to the same kind of a feelings that what John Carpenter, the movie director slash composer, is making, as well as the one of the bigger ones of the name Perturbator and as well Carpenter Brut. So in case those names give you a little bit hint what's going on. Now, Electronic Purification Records, which released this one on vinyl, they have been, you know, actually giving another good chance for artists like this Ogre here. And that is to give this feeling what's going on with the music. That is the kind of a nostalgic or fake nostalgic, as I like to call it. Because the thing here is, it's very much like going back to the 1980s as if it was happening. Much like Back to the Future and then coming back to the 80s. You know, the kind of a feeling that it's almost right there to feel with your VR goggles or without them. But it's not real, obviously, because these albums, this kind of a music happened very much after 2000. More importantly, mostly after 2010s. So even though, technically speaking, this album is more than 7 years old by now, it's still very much sounding like back in the 1980s. And yet, at the same time, it's very much 2010's release. Now, as you can see here on the band's Bandcamp site for this particular version and album, it seems mostly sold out, except for the digital album, of course. But I've been in talks with Electronic Purification Records, and there has been talks that some of these releases are actually reprinted, reissued once again. So I already got these copies, or this particular copy, late. After maybe a couple of years it was released. So when I'm doing this review late, things might have changed when it comes to terms of being sold out or whatnot. I really don't know the current details. But what matters is that you give this kind of music a shot. That is, if you are into synthesizer music at all. Now, what makes this a little bit different is, however, that it's not purely din 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 kind of a synth using. There are different kind of moments and themes and songs on this album. Some are more about, action sequences. Some are more like for example, this love theme, etc. You pretty much know the drill if you ever, taken a dive into the world of soundtrack music, like real movies or games. You know that different themes require different music. Opening theme is one thing. Then during action or kind of excitement parts require different kind of music and all that stuff. And as such, this is more, diverse than actual soundtrack, non-soundtrack music, which is just made there for listening experience. For example, synthwave albums which are more or less focused on doing just, synthwave music, be it crime wave or just kind of an outrun thing. They focus solely, more or less, in any given, theme or feeling, kind of atmosphere. Maybe some albums are just meant to, while you're, driving your Ferrari Testarossa into the sunset with a blonde girl by your side or whatever. And some of these are actually more like soundtrack-like, which is exactly the case with this one. So, depending which kind of a mood you're set for, it totally depends which kind of album you're looking for. And as a result, M195 is not exactly as easy to digest as some of those non-soundtrack albums, which are more focused with any given theme. That is not to say this album is bad by no means, because it's actually pretty good. But the thing here is, much like soundtracks, say, Miami Vice television show, because if you have all this diversity, sometimes you have to let your imagination go with the various tracks and in the individual tracks. And you kind of have to accept that after sort of kind of an action sequence song, you might have something totally different. And it's fine when we're talking about soundtracks. But if your mind is not ready for that kind of experience, it might feel too much like a roller coaster, going up and going down and having those really steep moments and then moments where you just have enough time to inhale and exhale and relax for a bit. All this being said, I urge you to give it a shot. Listen to something else than just metal all around, and maybe you will find something really cool like an Ogre release. So give it a go. I will have another Ogre one later on for review as well, but it might take some time to get back to that. So meanwhile, why don't you give this one a chance and check out the links provided in the description box. Who knows, maybe you might even enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Take care.